Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I've been a-climbing on, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark, where there ain't been no light. So, boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps because you find this kind of hard. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It was in 1922, 100 years ago, that Langston Hughes, the famed literary genius of the Harlem Renaissance, first published these poetic words. The opening lyrics to the iconic poem Mother to Son resonate within all who know them as an introduction to the explication of human resilience, grit, tenacity, and perseverance found in the subsequent lines of the poem. Written in the vernacular of a black mother speaking candidly to her son about forging forward despite life's disparate opportunities, there is no doubt in my mind that Hughes himself had been a beneficiary of having heard similar words spoken to him when his spirit needed encouragement. It is probably not a coincidence that Mother to Son was published in the same year that Hughes dropped out of Columbia University after attending for only 1 year and deciding that Columbia was not for him. Hughes knew something about being talented, gifted, black, and frustrated with the antics of academia. As we stand here in 2022, 100 years after the initial publication of Mother to Son, and 55 years after the death of the poet laureate of Harlem himself, Langston Hughes, I would love to proclaim that being talented, gifted, black, and frustrated with the antics of academia are relics of the past generations of inequity, but I do not have sufficient evidence to support that claim. I do, however, have the works of Gloria Ladson Billings, Geneva Gay, Richard Milner, and Christopher Emden in their respective scholarship on critical race theory in education, culturally responsive teaching, the opportunity gap, and reality pedagogy, on which to profess that the black son, now more than ever, needs to have his say. In Mother to Son, only the mother speaks. We do not hear the son's response. Truth be told, in 1922, the era in which talking back to a black mother might have landed him back on the steps with a few missing teeth, it was probably wise for the son not to stand and respond. In this modern era, however, scholars agree that children indeed are educational partners whose voices and frustrations need to be heard as a formative step in designing the systems and structures needed to sustain their successful ascent on the proverbial staircase of life. Given that best practices in pedagogy now insist that students be seen, heard, and validated for the cultural capital that they bring to the classroom, I offer these words inspired by the experiences that I have had with my own students whose extra personalities and sometimes feigned invisibility have shouted, "Hello, world!" in their efforts to make me a better teacher. Student to teacher, a pedagogical plea. You've got yours, and I've got to get mine. Teacher, please go somewhere with that old-timey line. Can't you tell by the expression on my face that something you're doing is just out of place? Yeah, I get it that you have your degrees and you worked hard for them, but please, teacher, please, remember that you came here to work with me. That makes me the customer. So now let's see what you can do to get this order right so that all of us under your tutelage might see the light. Yeah, I've seen you rolling your eyes at me, thinking that I'm apathetic. Well, if you start planning your lessons with me in mind, then I assure you I'll get it. I want to be academically successful, but I'm a product of this school, so I'm depending on you not to play the fool. Have you read the literature to see what it has to say about how knowing your students comes into play? Do you know where I'm from? Do you know who my people are? What's my favorite color? Do you know how far I've come and how far I still need to go? Tell me, teacher, what do you really know? 1, 2, 3. Eyes on me. Take a good look, because your success and mine hinge on whether our objectives align. When creating a space that allows me to flourish, one that invites me to wrap my whole self around the knowledge, I need you to embrace my glows and my grows and to flavor this curriculum, because God already knows that if we keep going at it the way that we are, we will both be frustrated and neither of us will get far. And by the way, I'm not the only one you need to hear. Jesus, Muhammad, Mariela, and Saran also want your ear. They might not raise their hands, and they might not get on your case, but they want you to recognize that they're here, and they're more than just a face. English is not their first language, so womp, 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 womp. There you go. You're going to have to do something different. Show that you know. Don't assume they understand just because they nod their heads. To me, you're boring. And I know what you're saying. To them, you're incomprehensible. They're just good at behaving. I'm not. Get to know all of your students in the way that I'm asking you to know me. They're depending on you too. Now, do you see? And by the way, if this appeal has you in your feelings or has shaken you to your core, good. Then I've done my job in helping you to see clearly more and more. Don't just stay there in your feelings. Please do call my mother. She can help you understand how to go the next step further. She'll probably tell you her story, something about some torn up stairs. Remember, you called her, so hearing her out is only fair. Cheer up, teacher. I can tell you find this conversation kind of hard. But don't stop. Don't just sit there. Beloved teacher, you're smart, and there is much to do. 1, 2. Eyes on you. Signed, your student.